So it is time for another Tim Gwain video. Um, so this is kind of well, some of you won't be surprised at the topic of this. This is about J.K. Rowling and about transgender issues and what has been coming up for the last several months. Um, so J.K. Rowling has made herself known recently again, uh, not because she's fighting for Black Lives Matter, not because she's a staunch advocate for the Black community, and not because she is on the front lines protesting in England. Um, and it's not even because she's a staunch ally of Gay Pride Month. This is June, typically set aside for many major cities worldwide to celebrate Gay Pride. No, the creator and author of the wonderful world of Harry Potter and Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry is on the Twitter chopping block because of her tweets, likes, and retweets of certain tweets regarding transgender people and even gender dysphoria. The fact is, Rowling's tweets are more than insensitive, and they do not come from a place of ignorance as much as a lack of compassion, which is amazing due to the world that she built as she created a world that featured muggle born witches and wizards, those who were born muggles but were actually magical. They didn't know that they were magical until, of course, they get their letter from Hogwarts at the age of 11, and they come to that realization, prepubescent. The trouble for Rowling began in December of 2019 when she stood up for Maya Forstater, who was a consultant for the Center of Global Development. And for brevity's sake, let me just say that Forstater began tweeting about a person in her office who identified as non binary but preferred feminine pronouns. She, the fellow employee, used the restroom that she identified with and was dressed appropriately for, sometimes in male centered fashion, sometimes female centered fashion, and sometimes androgynous. But Forstater did not like this and tweeted such. And there were also fellow employees who sent a grievance, and Forstater's contract was not renewed, and she sued the company. The Employment Tribunals of London agreed that Forstater's tweets created a hostile environment for the non-binary employee, and the fact that she refused to acknowledge or use the correct pronouns also attributed to the hostile work environment. Now we cycle back to Rowling in December. J.K. Rowling, after a year or so of liking and retweeting many questionable tweets regarding gender identity and negative transgender threads, literally came out in defense of Maya Forstater, stating that she was the victim in that she could not be expected to conform to the co-worker's request that she use the correct pronouns. Understand, for those of you who do not live there, in the UK, it is actually against the law to misgender someone. Um, it violates the personhood of the trans non binary person to whom one is speaking or about whom one speaks. Since then, Rowling has faced much criticism, receiving all the backlash. Um, Rowling decided to answer it with the following tweet, doubling down on her support of anti trans Forstater. She says, if sex isn't real, there's no same sex attraction. If sex isn't real, the lived reality of women globally is erased. I know and love trans people, but erasing the concept of sex removes the ability of many to meaningfully discuss their lives. It isn't hate to speak the truth. Unfortunately, what she is saying is not truth, and I wish that it was coming from a place of ignorance, that of someone who has not been shown why this is misleading. However, she has been told many times why her support of anti-trans sentiment and conflating sex with gender and gender identity issues is wrong. However, she continues with the rhetoric that is both harmful and hurtful. In this particular tweet, again, Rowling conflates sex with gender and gender identity. And that is common with those who do not understand or do not wish to understand to do. Sex is that designation given to one at the moment of one's birth. It is representative by the genitalia. It has nothing to do with gender. Gender and gender identity are varied fields of scientific research and findings. And in the description below, I'm going to put a few links to studies that I'll reference later. There was also a piece on COVID-19 and its effects on people who menstruate. Now here's a backstory. The reason those three words, people who menstruate, are used is because it refers to cis women and trans men at certain points in their transition. It does not include women after menopause because COVID-19 doesn't affect women after menopause in the same way that it affects women before menopause. There is no menstruation after menopause. It also doesn't affect trans women because they don't have the ovaries and the uterus to menstruate. So it only includes those of cis women and trans men in a certain point of transitioning. But Rowling took offense to the term people who menstruate. So she tweeted this: people who menstruate. I'm sure there used to be a word for those people. Someone help me out. Wumben, wimpund, woman, and it was received as being as insensitive and boorish as it actually sounded. Rowling's response was less than suitable. She did not apologize. She simply doubled down on what was seen as anti-transgender people sentiment. But Rowling is not alone. In fact, her sentiments exactly match those of the TERF, trans exclusionary radical feminists. For more on why she is said to be speaking for the TERFs, I've included down below a link to the USA article written on the 9th of June this year, just a few days ago. This, folks, I believe is very important. There are many reasons why. First, we are in the middle of a global pandemic, the likes of which we haven't seen in over a century. Second, worldwide, there are protests that all connect to police brutality and the systematic racism that is only slightly represented by the death of George Floyd. That just happens to be the very last in a long string of systemic police brutality. Actually, there was another one just a few days ago. But these protests call for the systemic change and reformation in our police system and justice system, and calls for the equitability of our Black brothers and sisters. Yet Rowling chose to stand on her incredible platform and tout even more exclusionary rhetoric, that of excluding the transgender community. What she is doing with her anti-transgender people rhetoric is hurting those who are already hurting. Depression and suicide ideation among transgender men and women who experience gender dysphoria without the benefit of transitioning is the highest among any other demographic group, including gay and lesbian teens. However, it should be noted that both of those drop significantly as they begin and continue with their transition. I've included the link to the study below. Her insensitive and downright exclusionary and hateful comments dehumanize our transgender and non-binary brothers and sisters. By not using the pronouns that associate any person with their gender identity, you are insulting the validation of who they are. Now, Rowling talks about how it limits her and others' experiences as women, and I find that equally insulting. As rights given to our transgender brothers and sisters take absolutely nothing away from those of us who are cisgendered men and women. As Jamie from the Jamie Dodger YouTube channel says, this isn't a pie. This isn't a tug of war. Rights given to my friends who are transgender women take absolutely nothing from the cisgendered women I also call friends. And I'm amazed that we are even having this discussion after just a few years of having the exact same discussion about marriage equality, and decades after Loving versus Virginia, that gave the right of marriage to multiracial couples nationwide. Heteronormative marriages are not in any way, shape, or form affected by my marrying a man. If my gay marriage will destroy your straight marriage, then your marriage was pretty weak to begin with. The same goes for my transgendered brothers and sisters. If allowing them to live their lives with peace and attempting to simply shake off the coil of gender dysphoria will affect your femininity or your masculinity, then it's pretty damn fragile from the beginning. And maybe you should take a look at yourself. And apparently, I'm not going to go into all the studies concerning this topic. I'm still going to put the links on only some of the peer-reviewed research data and papers on the subject of transgender and gender dysphoria issues from adolescent to adulthood. And if you look at them, you might actually learn something. For now, I'm going to sign off. Thank you for watching. As with most YouTube content creators, please, if you like this video, hit the like button. Feel free to subscribe to my channel. I know I'm not quite as charismatic as most, but I hope that I'm at least informative. And possibly if I gain more followers, I'll be able to create more content with a little more charisma. So, for now, ciao.